am in long-term recovery and have been now for 3 years. I am a community liaison for Cardinal Recovery, and I also do peer recovery support in Meigs County, and I sit on the treatment team there as well for our first ever drug court.
Very cool. That's spectacular. Well, thank you so much for coming out and joining us. How has the experience with drug court been?
It's been wonderful, honestly, to watch the judicial system change in my community. We have a wonderful judge who's just on board with recovery, who doesn't see that just the only thing you can do is throw people in jail. She wants to see people change, and she's behind them, you know what I mean? So these people get a team of others who are involved in their care, and it's just a beautiful thing to be a part of. I'm so grateful for that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So could you start off by telling us a little bit about your childhood?
Okay. I feel like that's going to be our hardest question today because, I want to say like childhood was amazing and, but that's not unfortunately how it went. I did have wonderful parents. My mother struggled a lot with mental health issues. She was in and out of hospitals a lot while I was a child. At one point she did try to take her own life. I was 9 when that happened. My dad drank a lot, probably to cope with the fact that like my mom was struggling with mental health issues. And, as a child, you don't realize that those things are caused by each other. You know what I mean? So the way that they medicated for mental health disorders in the 90s was just so different than what we have available now. So the version of my mother that I get today is amazing. She shows up to be a great grandmother. Like she'd do anything in the world for us. Unfortunately, that's just not who she could be when I was a kid. When I was a kid, it was definitely different. So, a lot of craziness happened, but through that, we did get to be loved well. And, she always instilled in us that we could count on her for what she had to give. So.
Mm-hmm. And are you an only child or do you have siblings?
I am not an only child. So I have an older brother. He is 4 years older than me, and he's amazing. So his name's Jason.
Can you talk about when you first started experimenting with alcohol or drugs?
So, the first time that I ever used any substance, I was 11. I was at my aunt's house, and she was a younger version, I guess. She was like in her 20s, so, and she was kind of lonely, so I was like her best friend, and she used pot every day, so she thought it was okay to smoke with me at 11. I remember laying on the couch and praying to God that it would just go away because it was the worst feeling ever, but that's how that began.
Okay, and so with having that terrible feeling, how long was it before you picked up something again?
Every weekend after that. I mean, it was like when I went to her house, and maybe it wasn't every weekend, but it was very often. Like she would come and get me, and I thought that was wonderful because she was taking me away from like the chaos that existed in my home. And for that weekend, I just got to be free from all of that. And, the drugs helped with that. Looking back now, I can see that, but I thought it was like her loving me, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
Can you share a couple of stories that really illustrate what life was like in active addiction?
Well, for me or as a whole for everybody, because
I would say for you and for everybody.
Okay, so for many years I made addiction work. I would always joke about being a functioning addict, right? Because like I held a job, all that stuff, but then it became that I couldn't function because I had to, get high every single day. And like that consumes your entire existence. So you forget that a job matters or, unfortunately that my children mattered. So I had 2 kids and, I was shooting up in the bathroom for hours and telling them like I'd be out soon, but I couldn't come out soon because I couldn't hit a vein. You know what I mean? So I was just locked into that insanity and thinking I was a good mom because even though I was an addict, I felt like I was better than what I'd been gifted, but that wasn't the case, you know what I mean? Because even though my mom struggled with mental health issues, she sure wasn't shooting up in the bathroom, you know what I mean? But that's how I justified it. Okay. So that's one good example. And then, another example would be losing custody of my kids, because you think that you love them enough that you can get sober, but you can't because it's not about whether I loved them. It was not me not loving me. When they got taken from me, I just spiraled out of control. Like, what do you get better for at that point? Because there was nothing else holding me there, Mm-hmm. So that would have been it. And, just chasing that every single day, like not caring that my babies were falling asleep at night crying because they didn't have their mother. And that didn't even register in my mind. You know what I mean? My mind was set on every day I'm getting high no matter what. And my kids were not even a part of the equation. So,
Right. So how did they end up getting taken away? Was a family member that called, or did they reach out for help?
So, my mother went on vacation and she took my oldest child because they had this really close relationship. And while they were on vacation in South Carolina visiting my brother, someone called Children's Services and they show up, right? So I'm smart and I think I'm just going to tell them that I don't have to pee for them. You don't have an order that states that I have to. Well, because I didn't do that, they took Sophie that day. And I thought it'll be okay. Like, I'm an amazing mom. I'll get them right back. But that wasn't the case because, I needed help. And so luckily, the judge and Children's Services, they seen that I could be more. And they weren't going to give up on me, but they weren't going to continue to pacify that I could raise children in that state of mind. So, yeah.
And how many attempts did you make at getting sober?
I went to so many Suboxone programs thinking that was like the answer for me, and I would always fell out because, I was like sharing my Suboxone with the boy that I was dating, and then also, when the meth came along, because crystal meth was what depleted everything for me. But when that happened, I signed myself in to detox, and then I left 3 days later, like at midnight, like 50 miles away, thinking I could walk because who cares? Like, I'm going to get high at some point, right? That was the day I came home and the kids got taken completely from me. But then I went to RWRP thinking, that's in Athens, thinking like that would work. I was there 13 days and left because I had it. At 13 days, I could stay sober. And it wasn't even 3 days later, I was calling my kid's dad saying, like, if you don't bring me drugs, I'll find a different way to get them, because that insanity kicks back in. And then all of a sudden, no matter what, I'm getting high. So,
right.
Yeah. So it took me 4 times to, like, in a residential facility to get it right. Yeah.
Okay. So if you could talk a bit about what was different this last time.
Field of Hope changed my life forever. I mean, I definitely want to say that very clearly. I learned so many things about the trauma that had hindered me in life that I really never thought was a problem. I thought I was tough, that those weren't issues that I should deal with. And being there taught me that I needed to work on anger. I needed to work on resentments. I needed to learn how to forgive and forgive myself too.
So what do you do today to maintain your sobriety?
Lots of things. So service work's huge. I can't stress that enough to people in early recovery. So if you want to feel good about yourself, show up for other people. Like, that's my favorite thing I get to do today. I get to be a daughter, a respectable one. You know what I mean? She calls me and says, let's go eat lunch together. Or, I could call her for anything today, and it's not like there's no motive behind it, and she knows that. You know what I mean? So I get to do that. That's huge when it comes to my recovery. I get to be a mother to 2 wonderful children, and they weren't enough to get me to get sober, you know what I mean, because I was damaged, but they're enough to help keep me that way. And, I get to show up and not be the mom who shoots up in the school bathroom. I'm like, just so many wonderful things. And I work in recovery, you know what I mean? Like, I get to share my story. I get to experience other people's stories, and I get to be a part of their recovery journey. And what a beautiful thing that is, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Could you share some of those intangible gifts that you've received?
Yes. So the biggest thing that I would say, this will be the biggest one for me. So when I was in my addiction, my relationship with my 13-year-old was so damaged. He had been through the worst of it with me. Today, I get to ride in the car with this little boy and talk about his day. And I get to be the first person he wants to call to tell something great has happened because I'm his mommy. And I get to be that. And that's what recovery has given me, along with many other things. My recovery has given me credibility in my community. It's formed new relationships I never thought were possible. It's given me hope in life, and I get to share that with others. It's given me a positive attitude. It's freed me from anger and resentments. And I got married this past year. Like, who'd have thought that was going to happen? Because, man, I was not a nice person, you know. But today I get to care about other people's feelings. So, yeah, these are all gifts.
You're making a huge difference in your county. How else do you help with drug court?
So my role there, and I don't know that this was how it was intended originally, but what it has become is the support. I mean, I guess it was always intended to be that because it's peer support. That's why I show up. But it's so much more than that. Like, you know, I get to encourage them through milestones. You know, I always am letting them know that I'm there for them, like in ways that I just didn't have. You know what I mean? Like, and that's my favorite part of it. So I get to be the person that they can call on a Saturday or a Sunday when everything's falling apart, and I can answer the phone for them because I make time no matter what. Like, I'm super busy right now, but that's the one thing that I do is like, if I say I'm going to be there for you, I'm going to be there because that's who I get to be today in recovery. You know what I mean? There's been all these years where I was just messing things up time after time. I could never be a good friend. I could never be a good peer. I could never be a good mother, never be a good friend. Like, today I get to be all of that. You know what I mean? And I offer that to everybody. If you're in recovery or you're just like tiptoeing in a little bit with your toes, like, I'm there for you. You can call me always. You do not have to be alone. I feel like people need to know that. I mean, if you walk into any establishment, I guarantee you're going to find somebody there who knows something about addiction, who understands that, you know, in order to defeat addiction, you have to include yourself into something. You can reach out to anybody. I mean, the thing is, people are genuinely kind and caring, loving and good. And I say that to my husband more often than he'd like to believe it, honestly, but I believe it because I get to see that every single day. There are always people around who want to care, want to help you, and you just don't have to fight this by yourself. You know, go to a meeting, call somebody that you haven't talked to in a while and just ask how their day's going. You know, just, you don't have to carry it by yourself because it's heavy.
Mm-hmm. Yes. What have you learned from your addiction?
I think if anything, I've learned that I'm worth fighting for, you know, and I want people to know that they are too. And that's what I show up and try to encourage in others, that it is tough, but you can do it. If I could do it, anybody could do it. I believe that wholeheartedly. So
Absolutely. Is there anything that we missed that you would like to share with our audience?
There are amazing treatment facilities all over the state of Ohio or in other states. If you reach out and one doesn't work, that's okay, because it doesn't take just one. Sometimes you'll get bits and pieces along the way from one recovery center to another, but that's okay, because as long as you keep fighting, like, you're going to find your way. It may not be the first time, it may not be the 15th time, but honestly, if you just keep fighting, you're going to get there.
Well said. We really appreciate you coming out today. Your story is going to help so many people that think that they're alone and that there's no hope. You are proof that there's way out of addiction into the freedom of recovery.
Thank you very much for having me today.